For liberals that care about Jimmy Kimmel but don't care about Mahmoud Khalil or all the pro-Palestinian advocacy, this is your opportunity to educate them. This is your opportunity to make them connect the dots. I think they just look at like immigration enforcement as a separate thing, not realizing that Trump was expanding the permission structure for undermining the First Amendment, as I pointed out at the time, by starting the conversation on the basis of immigration enforcement. I said over and over again, liberals set the stage for Trump to dunk on the First Amendment. Anyway, we are going to talk about tic-tac-toe. Developing, TikTok is reportedly escalating a sweeping crackdown on pro-Palestine creators, deleting videos, scrubbing comments, and burying posts about Gaza. In July, it hired Erica Mendel, a former IDF instructor who says her Zionism was shaped during Operation Protective Edge to run hate speech policy with the help from ADL lobbying. A couple weeks later, on September 13th, TikTok introduced an overhaul of its community guidelines, banning users from calling the IDF terrorists and rolling out automated moderation that retroactively wipes posts. Users report Free Palestine comments disappearing in real time and Israeli war crime videos taken down. Oracle, Silver Lake, and Andreessen Horowitz are set to buy 80% of TikTok's U.S. operation, a move likely to make the platform even more aggressive in censoring pro-Palestinian content. One of the insane things about this, and I don't know if it's my own personal anecdote, I don't know how other people are responding to this, but at least on my own personal For You page, I've seen an influx of right-wing commentary, including, but not limited to, ironically enough, a lot of Nick Fuentes takes, but specifically black and brown fans of Nick Fuentes who are talking shit about me, saying I suck and I'm a villain and he is actually the true hero, which has definitely done a number on my conscience a little bit. Like seeing someone be like, we ride at dawn for a dude who thinks you are literally an animal. It just blows my mind. He is straight up said miscegenation is like a white person engaging in bestiality. That is a new kind of brain damage. Careful, Biden. What do you mean? Anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, I have noticed some crazy shit happening. All right, here it is. Israeli corporation Cyberwell is dictating content removed for anti-Semitism on X, Meta, and TikTok using the IHRA Zionist definition. I don't think a Zionist group should get to decide what is and isn't anti-Semitism. Listen to their rep describe what they do.
Cyberwell is the first ever open database of online anti-Semitism, a nonprofit initiative based here in Israel that's really looking at the issue of online Jew hatred through the lens of compliance. Actually, we're a service, if you will, for the social media platforms, helping them enforce their social media policies against anti-Semitism at scale. So Cyberwell now is taking, you mentioned over 10,000 examples that we've reported to social media platforms. Actually, the number is much higher at this point, around 11,500. And we believe those flags have been responsible for removing well over 300,000 pieces of content is what we estimate. Cyberwell is fighting back by taking our high integrity data on what online anti-Semitism is and actually using LLMs and generative AI to really take the brain of our human analysts and identify anti-Semitism accurately online. And we believe that this type of work is not only what's going to be able to help social media platforms automatically flag and remove hate speech that violates their policies, including anti-Semitism, but is a crucial thing to do as we look at the rollout of AI, because all of these large language.
It's just so wild to me that like this kind of stuff pretty much never actually silences like neo-Nazis and like people who are genuinely anti-Semitic, and almost always is used against who like actually are just anti-Israel. How is that even possible? I'm beginning to think that they are basically billing this as like some kind of reasonable way to combat extremism and real bigotry, and it has never been used against that at all. It's just like all it does is basically suppress dissent, reasonable criticisms coming from groups that they've declared radicals, oftentimes leftist groups, leftist commentary. Okay. Conspiracy time with Hasan. Looking forward to your ban. I like that I am engaging in conspiracy. This is straight up what they are describing that they're doing, by the way. Okay. And not only is she like just straight up talking about how they're like tackling anti-Israel sentiment, but also you are engaging in a conspiracy theory that like I'm gonna get banned in your mind. You are frantically imagining a world where I get banned as well. It's weird because Fuentes is anti-Israel too. So is this just a blow the Trump admin? That's the thing I will never understand. It does kind of feel like he's not as anti-Israel recently since the Charlie Kirk death, but it's kind of making me feel like he's trying to pivot to a more appropriate vector, a more appropriate place, because he's trying to become like the next Charlie Kirk. It feels like, taking over the position that Charlie Kirk had. Ironically, one of Charlie Kirk's biggest fears being realized in the aftermath of his untimely demise. But what's interesting is I just never would have thought that a guy who does the classic like Jews are responsible for everything would not salivate at the prospect of blaming Charlie Kirk's assassination on the Jews. Okay, that has been truly shocking, and I think it's because he is trying to moderate his commentary so he can become like a regime guy. Like, how are you going to say Jews did 9/11, Jews did this, Jews did that, and then not say at a time when like so many right-wingers are saying Israel killed Charlie Kirk, you just don't lean into that conspiracy at all? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Has he made himself scared of Jews for real? No. I don't think that's the case. But yeah, his internet footprint is already so up for good reason, because he is an insane anti-Semite. I bet the anti-Semitism database has some Jewish Voice for Peace Twitter accounts. Oh, for sure. How do you know that TikTok Ellison will use Cyberwell? No, I think this person is using Cyberwell as an example. I mean, he's claiming that TikTok is already using Cyberwell. I don't know if that is substantiated. I don't know if like the Israeli corporation Cyberwell is being deployed by TikTok, but I do know that they hired what's her face? Cyberwell, an Israeli intel-linked org, is now working as a trusted partner with all major social media platforms. I guess they're saying that. But this is the person that TikTok personally hired. Anyway, TikTok hired a Zionist censorship czar, Erica Mendel. Mendel's a former IDF instructor and is now employed to run TikTok's hate speech enforcement. The head of the ADL previously said Israel is a TikTok problem. Now a devout Zionist can censor the platform. Here's what she's saying about her own support for Israel. This is from an older video titled Faces of American Jewry. Let's take a look.
After my sophomore year, like many of my friends, I had a summer internship, a Goldman Fellowship at AJC. I came to work each morning as Israel engaged in one of the larger military operations of my lifetime, Tzuk.
Why would right-wingers be the ones saying it's Israel and most of them support Israel? Young right-wingers don't. And I think that there are numbers to suggest that, first of all, make no mistake, a lot of right-wingers who support Israel also hate Jews, okay? Unless you have ever encountered one of these people, you will never understand it. You're like, what do you mean? Because in our minds, like, support of Israel is connected. It's a lie, but it's connected to this support for Judaism, even though Israel and Judaism are not linked with one another at all. Jews have been around and Judaism has been around for far longer than Israel has existed, right? Israel's been around for what, 100 years? Ridiculous. Not 100 years, 80 years, but Zionism has been around for like 100 years. So for many people, because this connection exists, they get shocked when you hear about like the average evangelical Zionist opinion, which is very anti-Semitic, but also insanely pro-Israel. Christian evangelical Zionism is one of the most unique, one of the most schizophrenic positions that you can arrive at, because it unironically believes that one must send all the Jews to the desert, to Israel because they are the chosen sons and daughters of God, so that Jesus Christ can come back to earth and trigger the rapture as Jesus Christ battles the devil's forces in Megiddo. Okay? This is something that millions, tens of millions, if not 100 million Americans believe. Okay? Maybe not 100 million Americans in general, but like enough Americans believe it that it's like a truly psychotic thing that you would be like, what the are you saying? It's not 100 million. I'm exaggerating. There are Christian Zionists outside of America as well. You have to remember. There are evangelical Christian Zionists that are far 100 million. No, the number is actually around the globe. The number is probably larger than 100 million, chatters. What the are you talking about? Hello? Many of you literally are only stuck in the United States of America. Come on, man. You just made that shit up. Dog, explain to me why a International Court of Justice judge literally openly stated that she was put on a mission from God to defend Israel. There are definitely more than 100 million people, 100 million evangelical Christian Zionists around the world. 100%. It's just in the United States of America, it probably isn't 100 million. I said tens of millions, which is true. Not 100 million, which is not true. It's crazy because, like, this shit has... Do they also believe in aliens? I don't know. But, I mean, this is basically like believing in an anime and thinking it will be real. What's different than that? And Bigfoot. I mean, guys, here, let me give you a little taste. For those of you who are not... For those of you who have not encountered this perspective, okay? I said evangelical Zionism is truly a mental illness. Here is U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Let's hear what he had to say, okay, at the opening ceremony of the Pilgrimage Road. Marco Rubio was also in attendance. This is in Israel, okay? Let's hear what this brilliant mind had to say. This is a very prominent example of an evangelical Christian Zionist.
What an honor to be here for this incredible ceremony. Mr. Prime Minister, Secretary Rubio, all of the wonderful people who made this possible by their generosity, contributing to something that is historic and something that is a living memorial of what God has done. It was 4,000 years ago here in this city on Mount Moriah where God chose his people. He not only chose a people, but he chose a place. And then he chose for the people in this place a purpose. The people were the Jewish people. The place was Israel. And the purpose was to be a light to the world and to show that we don't have to look for God because he is looking for us.
It's also kind of funny because, like, it's just like, it is philo-Semitic, yes, of course, but you're just like auto-cucked. Felix says that as a Jew, he should be able to tell these guys, like, what to do, to be his, like, servant. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're so, like, I don't understand this mentality. Like, I just genuinely don't get it. Like, how the do you decide automatically that, like, another group of people are just, like, chosen? It's wrong to think your group of people are chosen already, right? Like, that's already freak shit. But, like, you literally are saying another group of people are chosen. I'm over here trying to combat the superiority complex that people have about, like, Christian nationalism and, like, other white supremacist formations. And this has moved beyond it, where he's like, I'm not even the master here, okay? There is someone above me. Between me and God, there is, like, a different group of people. It's the Jews. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing to believe. I don't get it. Bro, I'm sorry. It's such a unique American take. It is, but it also isn't. The reason why I say that is because there are 78 million evangelical Christians in the United States of America. Not all of them fully subscribe to, the theological justification for the rapture being that the chosen sons and daughters of God go into Israel, but many of them do. But that's all but a fraction, because evangelical Protestant form of Christianity is super, super invested in constantly bricking people's brains all around the world. So the total number of people that are evangelical Protestant Christians, many of which are ultra-Zionists, is in the hundreds of millions around the world. I mean, in places like Africa, for example, there are countries, if you look at like Nigeria is a good example of this too. There is Nigeria is the most pro-Israel country, is one of the most pro-Israel countries on the planet, and has a ton of evangelical Christians. Brazil is another one too. Like there are a lot of people who believe this shit, a lot more than you would think, because of evangelical missionaries, of course. It is legitimate Christian lore for all Jews to be good, and in Israel for Jesus to come down and rapture the world. Yeah. I come from Messianic Judaism as a non-Jew. Let me tell you, this shit gets insane really quickly. So there are a fuck ton of these people out there. And the reason why I'm bringing these people up is because they're so nutty that you genuinely can't convince them, right? Like there is no, how do you convince a guy who just straight up, dead ass will be like, these are the God's chosen people. Like they have to have Israel. Like that's you got to do cult deprogramming at that point.
And that is what so separates the long history of why this city is so important. And those of us who are not Jewish, we thank you for giving all of us a foundation of morality and decency and civilization upon which our own faith is built, for without yours, we don't have one. As I often tell my Jewish friends, you can be Jewish, you don't need me. But I cannot be who I am in my faith without the debt of obligation that I owe to you.
Crazy dick eating. Yeah, no. Like this is what I mean. I feel like an anti-Zionist Jew bricks this guy, right? Like he just straight up is like, I am a slave to you, my master. You could probably brick a guy like this by being like, I'm Jewish, I'm practicing. And if he saw a Neturei Karta guy, what does he do in that situation? This is a real conflict for him, right? Because Neturei Karta guys are, they're very Jewish. They're Orthodox, they're Hasidic, they're wearing the garb, you know what I mean? And they're super anti-Israel. How does that work? Yeah, they get the fur hat when you level up. Means you've had sex. For those of you who didn't know, I'm locked in. I know my lore. It's a baller hat. That and the tefillin is cool. I love the hat. I love the fur hat, and I love the tefillin, because the tefillin is one, it always reminds me, I'm Muslim, but it always reminds me of a tiny Kaaba. Okay, so in my head canon, it feels like they're just wearing a Kaaba on their head, and the other is it's cool because it looks like 300. You're like Leonidas, you wear the leather straps on your arms and you look cool, and then you put a tiny Kaaba on your head. Shut the fuck up, Gentile. I don't give a shit. Have you guys, I'm sure you've seen a tefillin before, chatters. This is it. This is why I'm saying it's I think it has pieces of paper in it, right? A Jewish scripture in it, right? Jewish writings in the tefillin, in the little Kaaba thing. Piece of the Torah, yeah. Bro, at least close the door on the way out of Jewish people's business. True. And this is the hat that you get when you level up. It's fire. If it wasn't on some inappropriate shit, I would probably get one. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's kind of messed up. I think it's way sicker. So what happens with this guy in the back, by the way? Because I see the Reddit the Reddit libertarian had a lot too. Does that have a significance, chatters? Or does that mean he's just not he prestiged? I think one of the craziest things that bricks people is that Judaism is such a old religion that this actually is a modern iteration of Judaism. This is something that really bricks people. They don't understand that Orthodox Judaism, specifically like Hasidic Judaism, is unironically a relatively modern phenomena. Did you know that? Isn't that crazy? Because you would assume that this is like the oldest practice, right? Nope, it's not. It's actually a newer version. And what's interesting about it is that because it was a newer evolution of Judaism that was, I think, it originally started in, I think, Ukraine or somewhere in Eastern Europe. That's the reason why half the gear that they're wearing is not fit for warm weather at all. Yeah, 18th century Ukraine. That's the reason why they got like fur and all this stuff. You know what I mean? It's because you're like, when you see it in Los Angeles, you're like, wait, how are you? Like, that's got to be so hot for you, my man. And it's because it was invented in it was invented in Eastern Europe. Yes, there are like so many sects within Orthodoxy. Each of them have slightest variation in the fit, lol. And the hats are for one tradition, and the fur hats are for Hasidim when they level up. How do you combat anti-Semitism when people bring up the radical side of the Talmud? I don't know. Everyone says they're one religion. It's like thinking that Christians believe that if you make fun of a bald people, 30 bears will maul you. No one believes that. And Talmud, especially, is not even like the Torah. Talmud, Judaism is the most like debate bro religion of all time. Okay? Unlike all religions that are subject to interpretation, Judaism is extra subject to interpretation. And from what I understand, Talmud is supposed to be literally dudes arguing for a century. And it's just like whenever people try to bring up like some misunderstanding of like a surah in the Quran, and then say, this is what all Muslims believe. They want to kill all the infidel, like that type of shit. It's just same as like bringing up the Talmud and be like, this is what all Jews believe. There are fundamentalist elements in every religion, okay? There are fundamentalist elements in every religion. You got Salafist, jihadist dudes. You have different sects in Islam as well, on the Shia side and on the Sunni side. And the same goes for interpretation of the Torah. There's fundamentalist Buddhists. Like there is literally so many different variants. And ultimately, no one, like the overwhelming majority don't believe in any of that shit. Zionism, in my opinion, is actually one of the easiest ways to talk about like a complete bastardization of an entire religion, a complete bastardized conflation with an entire religion. Zionism has become a civic nationalist religious thing for a lot of Jews that are otherwise secular and don't necessarily give a fuck beyond like having a sense of community. But the singular fixture that binds a lot of Jews in this regard is the nation state of Israel. It has nothing to actually do with the religion in and of itself. The religion's been around for thousands of years. Zionism has been around for 100. Okay? So when people start bringing up the Talmud as though like Jews abide by these principles and that they're monolithic in general, it's idiotic. Of course they don't. Now, does this mean that there aren't like straight up Jewish supremacist neo-Nazis? And I don't even mean like Zionists. I mean like Jewish Power Party, right? And the Itamar Ben Gvirs or the Kahanists, for example, which have definitely increased in their numbers. You have a lot of people who are liberal Zionists who basically have become ultra Zionists in the same vein. Yes, but that is, once again, a specific subsect of the broader religion and its practitioners. It's ridiculous to say all Jews believe this. Zionism, however, is a ethno-religious supremacist ideology. So the more people subscribe to Zionism and believe in Zionism, whether they personally recognize it or not, the more they actually subscribe to the exterminationist policies and the more they subscribe to the supremacist aspects of Zionism as well. This doesn't mean that like every single person is doing the same thing that some of these Kahanis losers are doing, where they say like the goy is cattle or whatever. Obviously, you know, like your liberal, like Brad Lander is a liberal Zionist. He doesn't believe that the goy are cattle. Okay, like it's just kind of funny to think, but that's what Nazis try to claim. Nazis try to claim that they that all Jews are like this, and that the Jews are monolithic, and they all are up to tricks or whatever the okay? Check my last message. I know a rabbi who said they wouldn't officiate an interfaith wedding if the Jewish person isn't a Zionism believer. Like, they'll officiate an interfaith wedding, but the litmus test for them is if you support Zionism or not. A fucking 78-year-old political project is a requirement for a 6,000-year-old religion. Is crazy work. Exactly. It is a totally modern iteration built on top of the collective trauma of the Holocaust and thousands of years of pogroms and shit that for a lot of people went from never again means never again for anybody to never again means never again just for Jews. It's a complete bastardization of the religion. Jeffrey fucking Epstein. No! Yeah. How the you are so stupid. I'm stupid. Ah! Dumbass. Release the files. No, he looks so healthy. You look like a Fallout ghoul, man. Busted, bro. What the is wrong with you? Yeah, here are the Neterai Karta guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike Huckabee would get bricked if he saw one singular Neterai Karta guy. Their basis for also opposing Israel and Zionism, or at least the starting point of their anti-Zionist beliefs, also come from religious text. They are usually also obviously in opposition to the wanton murder, certainly, but like their understanding is that Judaism, like Jews, are not supposed to have a nation state until the Messiah comes back. And that all of the, I don't know what the Jewish version of heretical would be, but their assessment is that like all the Zionist Jews that are trying to accelerate the nation state project without the Messiah coming back are actually heretical. Like they're non-believers. Yeah, the hats are expensive. They're costly. Each hat costs around $6,000. I've seen people pink wash their anti-Zionism. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, they're not woke by any means on any other issue. Not all Orthodox Jews are obviously anti-Israel. There are some Orthodox Jews that are super pro-Israel and some Orthodox Jews that are super anti-Israel. The percentage of Orthodox Jews that are anti-Israel is, of course, much, much smaller than the percentage of Jews that are Orthodox that are pro-Israel, for the record. So remember that. But yeah, I mean, that in and of itself also immediately disproves the notion that like Jews are a monolithic force in their understanding. But it's also extra funny to put that on Jews of all people, because it kind of feels like you've just never met a Jewish person or befriended a Jewish person, or at least multiple Jewish people in general, because not exactly a group of people that hate arguing and find themselves united on issues. Okay, I mean, as we talked about, literally the Talmud is about debate. The people that say this is what it says in the Talmud, like obviously Jews all believe this, have just never met a Jewish person ever in their lives, just in general. Because if you were to talk to a Jewish person about like whatever is in the Talmud, they'd be like, what the f- are you talking about? What? I don't have any idea. But the Talmud itself is also a debate.
For having listened to God and been willing to be obedient to Him when He called you to this place as His people for His eternal, everlasting purpose. And I salute you and join you tonight in the celebration of this wonderful, magnificent, incredible reminder that God never has been finished with Israel, and He never will be. This is the eternal home that He has chosen. God bless you all.
Standing ovation for that. Oh my God. Oh, here's Mark Levin at the Christians United for Israel conference. Here it is. Let's hear what he had to say to all the Christians that are there to celebrate and show unlimited loyalty to Israel. Yeah. Also, the funniest aspect of I mean, let me tell you something. Okay. First of all, no Jewish person believes in the rapture. Okay. That's number one. Because if they did, they would recognize that it is an inherently anti-Semitic concept anyway, because, as this chatter correctly points out, 144,000 Jews will actually also see heaven during the rapture, because that's the slated number of Jews that will convert to Christianity on the spot. All the other Jews get to burn in eternal damnation, just with the rest of us, okay? With the Catholics, with the Muslims, with the Buddhists. We all go to hell, and it's the most diabetic, angry you've ever encountered. They all get sucked up into the heavens with 144,000 Jews that convert on the spot. So obviously, no one believes that, okay, except for the evangelical Christian Zionists. But it is funny that that's enough for. I mean, that inherently anti-Semitic endpoint is of course allowing people to continue defending Zionism and have an incredibly valuable ally in the United States of America for Zionism. So they just go along with it.
This is civilization, as the ambassador said, versus the barbarians. We're fighting the 7th century. And we just beat the crap out of them.
Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel were saying disgusting things about Charlie Kirk. Can you use your platform to signal boost and get them fired from the Miami Dolphins? Brother, isn't Tua already gonna like fire himself if he just refuses to take the proper medical care of his brain anyway? Just wait out a season. I don't even watch football, and even I know that.
This is a righteous war we're fighting. And let me say this is God's war that we're fighting right now. And if Europe is too stupid to understand, that's their problem. I will remind you, that's where Hitler was born. This is good versus...
Oh, God, I love... Man, these guys are so crazy. It's so funny. Let me remind you of a little guy by the name of Adolf Hitler. This just hit the October 7 notes, blood libel, Adolf Hitler, Holocaust. That's it. It's done. Okay. No politic here. But getting back to the new Zionist censorship czar, Erica Mendel, former IDF instructor who is now working at TikTok to combat extremism, anti-Zionism, for example. Let's take a look.
After my sophomore year, like many of my friends, I had a summer internship, a Goldman Fellowship at AJC. I came to work each morning as Israel engaged in one of the larger military operations of my lifetime, Tzuk Eitan, Operation Protective Edge. That summer, I realized how impactful my Jewish upbringing and education was. I simultaneously realized how passionate my own Zionist identity had become. I knew the well-being of Jews worldwide and the security of Israel would be issues of lifelong importance to me. I grew up in a traditional Jewish household. But in an untraditional decision, after graduating from Michigan, I made Aliyah and enlisted in the Israel Defense Forces. I spent the next 2 years serving as a Madrichat Shirion, an instructor in the Armored Corps. To many, this might seem like a contradiction. For a woman who identifies as liberal and...
It just blows my mind. Like, it's not even a contradiction. It makes total sense. But it still blows my mind that, like, you live in America and you're like, damn, I saw them smoking Muslims. I saw the apartheid. I saw a creeping genocide. And I was like, that's my shit. I have to go live in the desert. Okay? That is crazy to me. That's a crazy thing to do. The is wrong with you, man? Wrong with you? I don't understand it. I will never understand it. I genuinely will never be able to understand it, okay? How haven't you been deplatformed yet, you hypocrite piece of shit? You are a scumbag. Do you love Israel? Is Jewry not a slur? No. Of course, it depends on who's using it. It's not a slur at all. It's just it's like saying Jew, okay? It depends on the seasoning you put on it. Nazis also in Nazis, when they talked about Jewish people, would use in the translated works would use international Jewry. So no, it is very offensive. No, I mean, this is what are you talking about? This person that wrote Faces of American Jewry, this is from a literal Jewish group. What are you talking about? They didn't write it with a negative connotation. You're wrong. Yeah, it's like saying, Christendom, or saying ummah. The word for Muslims is ummah, okay? The word for Jews is Jewry. It just means like Jewish people all around the world, like the international Jewry or the American Jewry. Anyway, let me finish this.
Progressive to be a Zionist so committed as to join the IDF. For me, these two identities go hand in hand.
My coworker won't give you a chance because, as he explains it, he's already given up and only sees you as a voice box for today's latest catastrophe and suffering. If you see everything in the chat, you saved my life and keep me going as an activist in Chicagoland. Love you. Hell yeah. Anyway. Also, the GOP is cheering the Kimmel suspension and felt it was a long time coming. 71% think of the GOP. 71% of the GOP think the mainstream media is biased and should be punished and being upset by government influence. 64% of GOP already felt U.S. media was influenced a great deal by government interests. I think this is a crisis in misinformation. The reason why is because 90% on the mainstream side, 90% of conservatives get their news from a singular resource, Fox News. And this is the Fox News narrative and has been the Fox News narrative. The media is biased. Mainstream media is biased. Mainstream media is liberal, right? And there's a lot of government interference already. This is something that they've hallucinated. That doesn't mean it's real. Now, what's important here is that because this isn't real, you can have a conversation with people and explain to them why it's not real. And you should, okay? You should. A big chunk of conservative grievances stem from not recognizing that their ideas are not broadly popular, okay? And they want to punish people for not saying that their ideas are popular because they think that if they actually silence the opposition, they'll be able to get more people on board. They'll be able to live in this fantasy land where everybody goes, no, you know what? These opinions are great, actually. Fascists. Thank you, Austin. He's right.
Yeah, there are rare points in which I see a piece of data and it just sort of jumps off the screen at me. And this is one of them because I really just think it tells the entire story. And this is among Republicans. The media is biased and should be punished. Look at this. 71% of Republicans agree with the idea that the media is biased and should be punished. Republicans are absolutely loving what is happening right now to Jimmy Kimmel. Absolutely love the words that are coming out of Brendan Carr's mouth. The bottom line is that they believe that the media is biased and should be punished. So taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air, if there's government influence there, they're absolutely enjoying it.
Well, but punished by whom, I guess, is the question. How are Republicans, and how much are Republicans, as you're pointing out here, likely to or what are they going to think about that this decision was made with government influence?
Yes, exactly right. So, it's one thing if the idea is, okay, Jimmy Kimmel's being punished by his own company, right? Being punished by ABC, being punished by Disney. But the idea that the government is influencing it, I don't think that Republicans are going to have much of a problem with it, because take a look here. Republicans already think that the U.S. media and U.S. news organizations are, in fact, influenced by government interests. Look at this again amongst Republicans.
The irony is, this is correct, just not in the way that Republicans think it is. When Republicans say like, oh, the media is biased or the U.S. media is influenced by government interests, yeah, on Israel, on American foreign policy, and yes, liberal media does actually present an antagonistic viewpoint to like their left flank, for example. We saw that with Bernie Sanders. But I think a lot of people see that, a lot of people feel that, and then they think the media being antagonistic towards any figure whatsoever implies that those figures are actually presenting good ideas, anti-establishment ideas. And that's how you arrive at Donald Trump. Okay? That's why there are so many Americans that go, I love Donald Trump and I love Bernie Sanders.
Look at this, 64%. This is, again, even before the Kimmel news broke, 64% of Republicans.
You are the reason Twitch is being dragged to Congress. You are going to get dragged through the mud, just as you should be after doing nothing but inciting hate and violence for years. I truly hope that the rotten douchebag you are gets permabanned from all socials. This is what I mean, brother. You have made up this power that I hold in your mind. You have decided to not understand what I represent. Okay? And it's fine. It's good to have some villains. But I always say, recognize who the real villains are. Okay? Like, do you really think that a Twitch streamer has this much power over your life? Do you really think that in a world where I am silenced and suppressed on all social media platforms, let's say it happens, right? Let's say the government kicks in and they're like, we need to make sure that this one guy is done with, okay? He's dealt with. Do you feel like that is going to materially improve your life in any capacity? You're going to forget about it. Shit's still going to suck. And I'll give you an example, one that I use all the time. Donald Trump spent very little time fixing the prices. Donald Trump spent very little time trying to fix the housing crisis. Houses are more unaffordable than at any other point in American history right now. Okay? That's the real issue. Healthcare and the price of healthcare keeps going up in this goddamn country. That's the real problem. The cost of education keeps going up in this goddamn country. That's the real problem. Donald Trump is not addressing any of those problems. He's not addressing it at all. What he has addressed so far is the 49 trans athletes that were participating at the collegiate level have been barred from athletic competition. He did that. Did that fix your life? Is it cheaper now to purchase groceries? Is it actually easier for you to get health care? Do you think that you won't get saddled with medical debt that will carry over for the rest of your life and haunt you if, God forbid, something awful happens to you? This is small-minded shit. And I'll take it one step further, okay? Charlie Kirk was an advisor to the president, okay? Charlie Kirk's positions were broadly reflected by the administration. You're mad at a guy who doesn't even have any crumb of power on the left flank of politics. Okay? This guy thinks he knows what everyday people go through, lol. Well, not until that long ago, I was also going through the same shit that everyday people go through, and you also did not say that I was wrong. Is shit sweet? Are you doing great? Here's the thing, and I said this with the Brandon, with the Brandon administration, right? When push comes to shove, you can't just vibe session your way out of this. You can't just simply say, nah, everyone's doing much better right now. Okay? If your pocketbook is hurting, no amount of no, your pocketbook is fine coming from the administration is going to make you feel more comfortable about your finances. You can't just lie and propagandize your way out of it. You can actually offer distractions, red meat to the base. We banned Jimmy Kimmel. We banned Hasanabi, right? Like that might make some people excited for a brief moment, but you're back to square one once you forget that that even took place. You can't hold that as a W for months, for years, especially when you're still hurting financially. Do you understand? Wait, are you actually going to get banned? Who knows? Maybe. It's very clear that there's a lot of appetite for this. This is what they want. It's very clear that like Republicans have deluded themselves into thinking that like regular Republicans, I don't mean like the administration, regular Republicans, especially online, especially on Twitter, have decided that like their lives will be materially improved if The View is banned, if I'm banned, if a bunch of other people that they're annoyed by are banned, not realizing that that's not going to make their lives any better. Not realizing that, especially someone like myself, like I'm advocating for their material conditions to improve as well. They just don't see it. They don't understand it. They think that I am on a vengeance quest towards the right. I never have been, and I never will be. That is precisely the reason why. I always advocate for universality, for universal programs. I always say, this guy loves me, and but also hates me at the same time. He loves the hate. Yep, pretty much everyone hates you for good reason. Yeah, for great reasons. Exactly. Totally. This is also a falsehood. Pretty much everyone hates you for for good reason is idiotic. Most people don't know who I am. And there are a lot more people who like me than there are who despise me. It's like chronically online shit, except obviously chronically online shit is becoming more and more a permanent fixture of real life shit as well. Is it? You radicalize the youth, they will know? Yeah, radicalize the youth in the direction that it's actually moneyed interests that harm their futures instead of their goddamn neighbors that came from a different country, or their neighbors who have a different sexual orientation. I know, real scary stuff. Radicalizing them to what? Have empathy for one another? I know. Radical empathy. Very scary. How much have you raised for Antifa? Come on, man. You've been in here long enough that you are not this illiterate. Stop LARPing as a illiterate car guy, okay?
Believe that the U.S. media is influenced by government interests a great deal. We're talking 2/3 of Republicans. And then you get another 26% who say are somewhat influenced by government interests. That totals up to nearly 90%, when, of course, you're not just rounding, as if you would, you'd be at 90%. But we're talking about 89% of the public, of Republicans, who say that the U.S. media is influenced by government interests. So no, Republicans, A, they like the idea that Jimmy Kimmel's being punished, and B, they're not at all going to be against the idea that the government might be influencing it, because they already think, 2/3 already think that the government is influencing U.S. media organizations a great deal in this country.
Why not? I mean, or just turn off the channel.
They could do that.
What is there is a big question about what Jimmy Kimmel's next move is. There's reporting from within, sources saying that ABC is trying to find a way potentially to bring him back on air. What's the conventional wisdom around this? Yeah,
what's the conventional wisdom? Well, I'll go to the prediction markets here. A chance that Jimmy Kimmel Live returns by the end of 2025. It's just a little bit more than 50%, 56% of the last reading that I was able to get. By the end of this month, it's 20%, about a 1 in 5. So at this point, the prediction markets basically have it as a coin flip that Kimmel.
This is terrible commentary. I'm gonna be honest. I will keep saying that. Like, who gives a about the prediction markets, man? Anyway, Senator Ted Cruz says the FCC Chairman Brendan Carr's statements about Jimmy Kimmel were dangerous as hell and compares them to the kind of rhetoric a mafia boss would use. Cruz says that while he likes Carr a lot and is happy that Kimmel's show got shelled by ABC, he believes Republicans will come to regret using government power this way.
No. Look, I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell.
For people that are listening, because this is going to be, quote, controversial, so I want to make sure we explain it clearly. When you say no and it's dangerous, explain and run this out, the slippery slope that this can open, so that people understand why we're saying it.
So the Federal Communication Commission is in charge of granting broadcast licenses. So ABC, NBC, CBS, they have licenses from the FCC. It is true that under statute, they're required to be in the public interest.
Yep.
What he is saying is Jimmy Kimmel was lying. That's true. He was lying. And his lying to the American people is not in the public interest. And so he threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off.
This also makes no sense. Because, like, this balancing act doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't. Because then your position is you should let people lie, right? And a lot of, like, normies are going to look to what you're saying and go, actually, I don't think that people should be able to lie, especially about my big, beautiful president. It's also incorrect. Like, Jimmy Kimmel didn't say anything that was even remotely controversial or a lie, okay? It is true that the Republicans desperately were pointing the finger of blame without even knowing who the suspect was at the notion that it was not one of their guys. And it's true. They did do that. They did do that. He didn't even openly say the shooter was MAGA. And even if he did, it still is not something that you can punish by the FCC regardless. That's not within the purview of the FCC. That's not, the FCC does not have power to dictate content on its airwaves beyond censorship over like certain pre-established curse words, slurs, things of that nature. Okay?
Off the air. So ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Oh, God. Ted Cruz is a podcaster also doing accents. What the This medium has devolved.
And I got to say, look, I understand. Jimmy Kimmel has mocked me so many times I cannot count. The corporate media, they are dishonest. They are liars. I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what
we
you
don't
can't
like
say
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives. It reminds me of, you and I are both fans of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien. It reminds me of like the Ring of Power. And it is so attractive. It's sort of like conservatives are saying, wait, if we have government, we have power. Yeah. We can ban the media. Let me tell you what will happen. Going down this road, there will come a time when a Democrat wins again. Wins the White House.
They will get rid of every
Democrat
talk show host in America that's a conservative. They'll get rid of every podcast. They'll get rid of everybody on YouTube.
They will silence us. They will use this power, and they will use it ruthlessly. I think it is unbelievably dangerous for government to put itself in the position of saying, we're going to decide what speech we like and what we don't, and we're going to threaten to take you off air if we don't like what you're saying. And it might feel good right now to threaten Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
But when it is used to silence every conservative in America, we will regret it. And so, again, I like Brendan Carr, but we should not be in this business.
I like that the Democrats are going to do that, except they're not. They never have, and they never will. The notion that the Democrats would, if they ever get back into power, utilize the federal government in this way is a hysterical position. Okay, it's just an utterly hysterical position. Democrats never have and never will do that. Okay. There was another thing that I wanted to cover here. Oh, here it is. In 1983, 50 media companies controlled 90% of the U.S. media market. That number in 2025 is now down to 5. The Telecom Act of 1996 reduced the FCC regulations on cross ownership, leading directly to this rapid consolidation. All of your media, just like all of your groceries, are unironically owned by like 5 to 6 mega corporations. Okay? Every single aspect of your life where you feel like you have the diversity of choice is built on a lie, a mountain of lies. Okay? The United States government, I used to say, is like 50 companies in one trench coat. Now it's like 5 companies in a trench coat. Okay? This corporate consolidation exists in every facet of our lives. But the way they hide it is by keeping the different brands under one umbrella, of course, directed by a singular group of people. And directionally, they're always on board because no matter if there are 50 companies or 5, there's still always going to be capital accumulation in mind. But that's not enough. It's not enough because when you got 50 different companies, all of which want higher profit margins, they obviously are still going to compete with one another, okay? But that market consolidation has made it much easier to give less and demand more in return year over year. This is it. The natural predisposition for a company under capitalism is to monopolize, is to engage in vertical expansion and vertical integration and horizontal integration. Mergers and acquisitions are even a further developed, even worse version of that. And on the independent media side, you have people who are very clearly also invested in massaging whatever kind of narrative you hear. The question for you, for all of you in this community, even the haters and the lovers alike, is that really what you want to live under? Do you want to live in a world where you don't realize that the government is controlling all flows of information, but they're still doing that regardless? Because that's where we're headed. That's where we're at right now. These are, I would say, the last few years, if not months, of being able to hear any kind of real dissenting, earnest opinion. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it doesn't matter. And the only way we were able to get to this position is because the internet was the Wild West for the longest time, where the interest of capital accumulation from social media companies actually aligned with the endless, unlimited flow of information and even misinformation as well. But that is shifting. That is changing. These old fucks are beginning to realize that the stuff that's going on online actually has a lot of influential power over the collective consciousness of Americans. So now they're putting the clamps on the internet as well. They don't need to do that for mainstream news because mainstream news demonstrates the same exact bipartisan consensus that exists in American politics. Things that everybody takes for granted and you never hear discontent on, whether it be any sort of anti-capitalist initiative, all the way from maybe abolishing the paywall structure that exists for healthcare, whether it be even demanding that we have public housing, whether it be a jobs guarantee by the federal government. These are things that are not discussed in the mainstream at all. There are certain places where these sorts of opinions are discussed freely online. Israel is another example of this as well, of course. There is almost complete capitulation to America's foreign policy goals and foreign policy desires, okay? Especially as it pertains to our unlimited loyalty and support for Israel, no matter how insane or violent Israel gets. And you're losing that on the internet as well. That is where we're at. It's here. It's here. I know Cardinal Dolan said the church would make Charlie Kirk a saint. I know. Here's another example of the Trump administration doing business as usual, just transparent corruption. 3 major white-collar criminals were convicted in fraud schemes in order to pay back over $800 million. Then Trump pardoned their criminal offenses. Now the SEC is dropping enforcement and they won't have to pay the money back. Devin Archer, Trevor Milton, and Carlos Watson each stole vast amounts of money. Archer targeted pension funds and a Native American tribal entity and was ordered to pay nearly $60 million. Milton was found guilty of lying about the supposed technical achievements of his electronic truck maker, Nikola. Prosecutors recommended that he pay more than $660 million back to shareholders. Watson was convicted of defrauding investors in his digital media company, Aussie Media, and was assessed penalties of nearly $97 million. This, by the way, is like a woke guy, too. Remember, it doesn't matter because Aussie Media was like supposed to be woke. So this is yet another perfect example. This is yet another perfect example that like these guys care about capital more than anything else. It doesn't matter how you're making the money. Each cozied up to the Trump world in seeking pardons. Archer's pardon application highlighted the assistance he provided the prosecutors and congressional GOP about his former business partner, Hunter Biden. Milton hired Brad Bondi, brother of Attorney General Pam Bondi, to help handle the criminal case and the SEC complaint. Watson cultivated Trump allies, including the White House pardon czar, Alice Mary Johnson, and lawyers with connection to the president. The dismissals of the civil cases further underscore how Mr. Trump used the levers of power to help affluent allies who have found themselves crosswise with the federal government he now leads. According to a June 2025 review by Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee, former President Donald Trump's pardons and commutations in his second administration have voided over $1.3 billion in legal obligations for convicted fraudsters, including some involved in schemes approaching or exceeding $800 million. These pardons have absolved criminals of financial restitution, fines, and in some cases, prison sentences. Here's another example. Philip Esformes, a Florida healthcare executive whose 2019 conviction for a $1.3 billion Medicare and Medicaid fraud scheme was met with a commuted sentence from Trump in his first term. He served only 14 months of a 20-year sentence. Jason Galanis, a serial fraudster and a con man, sentenced to 15 years for an $80 million scheme. After providing testimony for a Republican impeachment investigation, he was pardoned by Trump, which wiped out his obligation to pay $84 million in restitution. Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the dark web marketplace Silk Road, who was sentenced to life in prison. This is one of those where it's like, this is one that's like, you know, maybe a little bit more of a controversial one, not in the bad way, to be fair. But the ways in which this stuff happens is totally, openly, transparently corrupt. Todd and Julie Chrisley, the reality TV couple, was convicted of bank fraud and tax evasion with outstanding restitution of over $22 million. They were pardoned by Donald Trump. This shit is just the mob. Pay fealty and penance to the Godfather, and you're good. Ted Cruz saying, chill, we are sounding like the mafia. One must ask, does this help you? Did you see this insane take on Chris Hayes' shows last night? Yes, I did. It is one of the most abysmal takes I've ever heard. I've been meaning to actually hit him up for this because it's one of the craziest things I heard. Ben Smith, editor-in-chief of Semaphore, just said Mahmoud Khalil is in some ways less vulnerable than Jimmy Kimmel. Chris Hayes brushed it off by saying, well, he's being deported. But anyway, yeah, I can't believe I just watched this.
All right. They see no distinction. I think that's right. And I also think, I think actually what you saw with Mahmoud Khalil is that in some ways he is less vulnerable than Jimmy Kimmel. The people who are most vulnerable are the employees of big, consolidated mega corporations. Right, yeah. Although he's about to get deported. Who are very exposed to...
He's about to get deported. I think what Ben was trying to say, I'm not going to immediately assume that he was... I think what he was trying to say is that there is like the Constitution that is supposed to defend, like the First Amendment is a pretty apt protection for Mahmoud Khalil. Maybe he was trying to say that. I don't know. The left is being too woke. No, that's insane because it's actually at the heart of the contention that I wanted to address, which is that a lot of people unironically bracket off pro-Palestinian censorship as something totally separate. A lot of liberals are doing this. A lot of liberals have been doing this. And it's so annoying. And it's for two reasons. One, because a lot of liberals are also kind of on board, especially when Brandon was doing it, with whatever the Israel was doing, or at least like didn't care about it enough to make a big fuss about it. And they kind of see like any kind of anti-Israel sentiment as like, oh, they're just like, things up. They are the reason why we lost or whatever, right? But also, I think they just look at like immigration enforcement as a separate thing, not realizing that Trump was expanding the permission structure for undermining the First Amendment, as I pointed out at the time, by starting the conversation on the basis of immigration enforcement. I literally explained this when it was happening. I said over and over again, liberals set the stage for Trump to dunk on the First Amendment. Okay? Liberals set the stage by criminalizing pro-Palestinian advocacy, 3,500 people getting arrested on college campuses for peacefully protesting against the genocide. Okay? That's number one. And then Trump came in and took advantage of the fake concerns that were swirling around in an effort to discourage people from speaking out against Israel that Democrats absolutely created. That environment was created under the Democrats. And the Republicans went into this media landscape and basically said, oh, the Democrats are pussies. They don't want to do nothing about this. I'm going to tackle anti-Semitism. It was never about anti-Semitism. It was bullshit. Okay? It was bullshit. So Trump came in and first kickstarted the process by going after Mahmoud Khalil and Öztürk and numerous others, Mohsen Mahdawi, and he did it through the immigration enforcement side, when in fact it had nothing to do with immigration enforcement at all. It was everything. It had everything to do with like a group of people that were, I guess, more vulnerable than natural-born U.S. citizens, and he wanted to single-handedly revoke people's visas and attack people for the crime of speaking out against a foreign nation state. So there is a direct line from Biden's ridiculous policies of enforcing speech and criminalizing pro-Palestinian advocacy to Donald Trump coming in and using said advocacy or using said criminal enforcement and greatly expanding on it on the basis of immigration enforcement, all the way to Jimmy Kimmel. So people that don't understand that, liberals that don't recognize that, are deluding themselves. Okay, this is how it works. There is a consistent expansion of the permission structure. There's a consistent expansion of what you can get away with doing. That's how fascism evolves. That's how fascism grows. Okay? Just something to consider here. Yeah. This is why when Adam Schiff says Kimmel, Colbert, suits against the New York Times, blah, 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 Yusuf Munayyer clearly states, you literally co-sponsored anti-boycott legislation. You literally enabled this moment by undercutting free speech norms. To which this person says, Zionism was a hardened tungsten tip of the authoritarian projectile that was fired into the American institutions. It was liberal piercing. Straight up. But make no mistake, for the liberals that are pissed off about Jimmy Kimmel, but like were noticeably absent from the conversation when it came to Mahmoud Khalil, and that conversation is still ongoing. The Trump administration yesterday, alongside the Jimmy Kimmel news, literally had an immigration judge issue a deportation order for Mahmoud Khalil still, okay, to Syria. So that's still ongoing, right? There's a court case that's still going on. So basically, for liberals that care about Jimmy Kimmel but don't care about Mahmoud Khalil or all the pro-Palestinian advocacy, this is your opportunity to educate them. This is your opportunity to make them connect the dots that international fascism wears many faces, but it's still an international movement, okay? Fascists in Israel that are Zionists, that are of Jewish background, are not experiencing a point of marginalization when they're doing their ethnic superiority infused fascist agenda and their settler colonial occupation and genocide. Okay, they're doing the same shit. Do you understand? So this is your opportunity to basically explain to people like, no, these things are not actually different. You feel me? Yeah. Meanwhile, here's my little time slot on NBC. I'm gonna play this. Hasan Piker mocks Trump's fascist admin on NBC, says, as Antifa headquarters CEO, I guess, is a movement, an act, an ideology. A lot of our grandparents, as a matter of fact, engaged in organized anti-fascist action in World War II. Also pointed out, it's not new. He has tried to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization in the past. And I'm not exactly certain what legal limitations exist there. But one thing I can say as the Antifa headquarters CEO, I guess, is that anti-fascism is a movement. It's an act. It's an ideology. It's not an organized structure. It's not an organization. So therefore, there is no real way to potentially prosecute this group as a domestic terror group. Now, of course, there's also the other unconstitutional element here, which is that you're not supposed to go after and target domestic political organizations in general. This country has rarely ever prosecuted the Ku Klux Klan. This country has rarely ever prosecuted numerous far-right groups that have actually successfully pulled off targeted acts of domestic terror. And therefore, not only is anti-fascism not a cohesive, organized group that you could tackle, it also is, even if it was, it would still be unconstitutional to go after it in this way.
Yeah, Hasan, yeah, I mean, I just all of a sudden flash forward and I'm like, oh no, seeing this clip where you're saying I'm the CEO of Antifa, like being played in, I don't know, some court somewhere or some congressional hearing. Let's hope, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but, just to clarify the record here, how do you define Antifa and do you see yourself as part of an organization called Antifa?
No, that was a joke, of course. Like I said, there's no organized unit. Anti-fascism, like I said, is an action. I do engage in anti-fascist action, and I'm sure many of us have done so. If you call out someone who is behaving like a white supremacist, that's still technically someone engaging in an anti-fascist action in that moment. And as far as organized anti-fascist action goes, a lot of our grandparents, as a matter of fact, engaged in organized anti-fascist action in World War II. So you done goofed. I done goofed up. Oh, here's another fantastic move. New, the Pentagon told journals it will require them to pledge they won't gather any information, even unclassified, that hasn't been expressly authorized for release, and will revoke the press credentials of those who do not obey. This is something that already was a handshake, but it's cool that they're just openly admitting what they want. I mean, they're saying no journalism allowed. Like, that's an insane, that is a insane thing to put in writing. Okay? Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.